SANZAAR have announced their calendar through until 2030, folks, which is going to mean 2 fewer Rugby Championships than normal as the All Blacks and South Africans head off to have their own little rivalry in 2026 and 2030. We will go through the full calendar plus next year's fixtures in this greatest rivalry which have been announced. What's behind all this? And you guys can let us know your thoughts on whether you are in favor of it, against it, or somewhere in the middle. I'll let you know my thoughts as well. I'm a little bit mixed on it. I mean, clearly, New Zealand South Africa is a big rivalry. They're calling it rugby's greatest rivalry. I guess if the Six Nations can market themselves as rugby's greatest championship, the All Blacks and South Africans can market each other as rugby's greatest rivalry. There's certainly a long and storied history between South Africa and New Zealand. Recent years have also been pretty interesting. It's usually number one and number two in the world. For a while, the All Blacks had the Box number. In recent years, the Box have had the All Blacks number. There's World Cup final recently was contested between these two teams. Those tours of old were fantastic. When I was a child, growing up on those things, and my dad certainly experienced a lot more than me, the All Blacks heading over to South Africa or them coming here was always massive. So that is huge. These are two very big and important teams with, as I said, a long history. So more matches between these sides is massive. However, let's not kid ourselves in that the reason these two teams are branching off to do this is not to reignite history and to relive the years of old. This is about money. 100%. 100%. I know from this channel, which is very small in the scheme of things, that anything All Blacks Springboks does a lot better than most other rugby matches. It's just a thing, particularly if the All Blacks lose. But that's just this channel. But yes, I can only imagine at the corporate level how much money these guys make from broadcasts and ticket sales and all the other things that are associated when these two teams play each other. So they're going to go from 2 tests to 4, plus the kind of tour games which the All Blacks are going to have in this tour of South Africa. If you haven't seen it, it's been announced. They're going to play the URC teams. So they're going to play the Stormers, the Sharks, the Bulls, and then the Lions is going to be in between a couple of test matches. So it's going to be a full-on old-school tour with 4 tests. A couple in Joburg, 1 in Cape Town, and then 1, in all likelihood, in like London or somewhere like that. That's the speculation. So this is 100% about these two teams making a fair bit of cash. More than they can make in regular Rugby Championship years, for sure. Now, we need to also not kid ourselves that they are 100% doing this to the detriment of the Aussies and the Pumas. That's just one of the effects. I mean, the calendar officially announced it as it's time for the kind of international tour series. That's when this greatest rivalry one's going to be going on. And I guess Aussies and Pumas, you sort yourself out as to what you want to do. But certainly, like the All Blacks or Springboks coming to town, whether it's the Pumas hosting or the Aussies hosting, is going to be a big draw for them as well. So missing out on matches like those are not going to help those two unions, for sure. The All Blacks or the New Zealand Rugby Union's kind of getting the best of both worlds because they get to keep the Bledisloe and they get this greatest rivalry tour. So they're getting kind of 2 bites of the cherry, which is very, very, I'm sure, happy days for their bank balance. But yeah, you gotta feel for the Argentinians and the Wallabies, or the ARU and the Argentinian Rugby Union here, because they are very much left with the short end of the stick. I mean, imagine like the Beatles if just one year John Lennon and Paul McCartney just went off and did their own tour and just left the other two guys. You guys just sit tight for a year, do your own thing. We're going to go do an independent tour without the rest of yous. I don't know, who's Yoko Ono in all this? But anyway, as I said, I am still excited to see All Blacks touring South Africa because that harkens back to my childhood. A full tour series, despite the fact that I'm feeling for the Aussies and the Argentinians right now, I'm still going to be massively excited for that. Seeing the All Blacks as their squad evolves, very much like a Lions tour, to see which guys play themselves into, the starting roles, who's going to be the test team and all that, that's going to be phenomenally exciting. but I do still feel like it kind of sucks for the growth of the game. It's just for the growth of the bank balance of the SARU and the NZRU. But yeah. The calendar full 2026. They've got this new Rugby Championship, no, not Rugby Championship, new Nations Championship coming in, which is the one they've been talking about for years. The Six Nations teams, the Rugby Championship teams, Japan and Fiji, playing in those July and November windows. There is going to be this international tour series window, which is rugby's greatest rivalry for the All Blacks and Boks, and then the Argentinians and Australians sort yourselves out, and there still will be Bledisloe Cup. 2027, full Rugby Championship in a World Cup year, which is nice. And then 2028 is a kind of normal year where it's Nations Championship, Rugby Championship, Nations Championship. 2029, Lions Tour of New Zealand, full Rugby Championship, and then kind of Autumn Nations Series as we see at the moment. And then 2030, Nations Championship. This time it'll be South Africans touring New Zealand, and then Bledisloe Nations Championship. So, yeah, it's going to work out very well for the Boks and the All Blacks. I guess assuming both teams maintain their current levels, like it seems like the Boks are in a pretty good position. The All Blacks did get handed their worst ever defeat by the Boks in Wellington. So and we got our schoolboys got hammered by the Aussies the other day. So in 4 years' time, hopefully both of these teams are still in strong positions where a 4-match tour seems appropriate. I think it will be, but you never know. 4 years can be a long time. I hope the 4 tests that are being played over in South Africa are not all like 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. kickoff times for those of us in New Zealand, because that will certainly take a little bit of the shine off from a Kiwi fan's watching it point of view. But I guess the tours of old were all on in the middle of the night, so you got up to watch it. But yeah, big win for the New Zealanders, I think. Big win for the South Africans. Less so for the Aussies, less so for the Argentinians, and less so for the game generally in terms of like growing the game. This does feel like a little bit more of a step in terms of the big boys keeping it to themselves than spreading the love. But I don't want to be too pessimistic, because who knows, maybe people getting into this big rivalry gets more people into the game generally if it's a big headline in various parts of the world. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts. How much of this are you excited about? Are you at all worried that it affects the rest of the game in a negative way for countries outside of New Zealand and South Africa? Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Take care of yourself, folks, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.